Here with Lauren Megaw at New Orleans Investment Conference. She is representing Reyna Silver. We're going to get into Reyna Silver here in a moment, but I really wanted to talk to you, Lauren, about your experience, why you became a geologist. So tell us a little bit about your background.
I think, so I'm super lucky. Mm-hmm. I was essentially born into a geology loving, enthusiastic environment.
Dr. Peter Megaw.
Yeah, I mean, when your dad's Dr. Peter Megaw, I think my first PDAC I was like 2.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right? So I think there's that aspect. Like the last time I was at the New Orleans conference, it was Halloween. I had like my Halloween costume and I was running around with like my Halloween bag, putting people's like swag into the Halloween bag and, learning that if you want to get, more information or you want the cool stuff to come out from under the table, you got to talk to people about, what's going on with your project. And I think having that interaction with the community and getting to know people and to see the projects made me fall in love with it. And the other aspect is I'm a mineral collector.
Okay.
My dad is as well. And so when my dad would come back from working on a project, he would buy mineral specimens while he was there from the miners. And he would come home and we'd sit down after dinner and we would, the minerals are wrapped in toilet paper essentially to protect them. We'd unwrap them and we'd talk about them, what they are, how they fit into the system, where they come from, why they exist, why something's special or an interesting grouping. And I thought I wanted to be a mineralogist, right? I was like, that's my love, that's my passion, that's where I want to go. And then I was in school and I realized my love of minerals on like an academic career basis came from what they tell you about the systems they come out of, right? You're able to look at a mineral specimen and you get this example of visual geochemistry, right? You see how these systems interact and you go to a mineral show and you're able to see all these examples and a huge swath of specimens from a locality. You can see 1,000 of them and you go, okay, this is, I recognize this matrix. And I know that this came out of, this special mineral came out of a zone of really high silver. And this is what these rocks look like. And there's the adage, geologist who steps on the most rocks wins. But it's also, I think, the geologist who sees the most rocks wins as well. And so, like, as you were saying before we, started talking, that's why, site visits are so cool because you get to see the mining context, right? You get to see the project in context and how these rocks are all interwoven together and what the system tells you, because that's the beauty of geology, and especially in economic geology, is that it is so interconnected and everything's playing off of each other, and that's where the science almost meets the art aspect. And I think it's why I really fell in love with the economic geology side of things, because you have this mixing of ideas and people all coming together to bring a resource to other people, and I really love how that works together.
It's an amazing accomplishment. I love doing site visits. We've had the pleasure of doing some. We hit the Silver Strand in Idaho while we were there for Silver Hammer, which is exhibiting. One of the questions I asked you before, and I thought you gave a great answer before we started recording, is, as a geologist, how is it to you? Because when I walk into mine, I see, I see some layers of rock and things, and I ask some questions. What do you see as a geologist when you walk into a mine?
I think it's twofold, right? You're in a situation where you're seeing what's going on and how things are connected. But you're also seeing, okay, how this part relates to another part. You go and you visit 𝙎𝙄𝙇𝙍𝙊𝙎, for instance, and you see, okay, this is what the deep part of the pit looks like, this is what the rock looks like, but you can't see, the former cap. It's been gone for a while. But you get to go to another locality or another mine, and you get to see, this is what the surface exposure looks like. And so by going to these mines that are in production or going to exploration projects where they're drilling and you're able to take what you see on the ground, or what you see in the ground, depending on the situation, right? You put it into context, so when you go to another project, you can see how they're interlinked, or, oh, okay, I've seen this feature at a place that's significant. That's obviously that was an economic mine. This is a feature that I see again at this exploration project. All right, I'm going to take note of that and sort of file that away as, is this project interesting? I think that's one of the parts I really like about geology and about mining in particular, where unlike academia in some ways, right, you can have an idea about something, but in the mining side, you actually get to stick a hole in the ground and figure out if you're right. And
proof of work, right?
Proof of work. And I think one of the great examples of that is Reyna's Giga project, where my dad did his PhD on the 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙍𝙀 district. And you're looking at a locality that was historically super significant. And now, the question is, where's the other half of the carbonate replacement deposit? And, he developed his carbonate replacement deposit model at 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙍𝙀 that he then applied to 𝙂𝙊𝙇 and 𝙂𝙊𝙇 and 𝙂𝙊𝙇 and Cinco de Mayo. And now the question is, okay, can we go back to 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙍𝙀 and do it there too, where it all started? And I'm super lucky to have my dad and I had this thing that we get to share, right? This love for the geology, the love for the minerals. But as a kid, I feel especially privileged in being able to see the ideas come to fruition. To have that, okay, you were right. This is something really cool.
Yeah. Lifetime work sort of deal is kind of cool, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So talk about your schooling a little bit. I think you went to Stanford, and talk about your transition when you went in as a mineralogist and then you came out a geologist, and what that experience was like.
Yeah, so went in thinking I wanted to do mineralogy, realized that I like being outside and doing things, and so kind of transitioned to focusing more on the geo aspect. Still finishing up, there's like a co-terminal degree, how you do that to like officially get the paperwork sign off aspect of it. But I think being here and being able to do projects and work on things has totally solidified my yes, this is what I want to do, right? And I was really fortunate at Stanford to have some of the hardest and my favorite professors were some of the women professors. And we're talking about people who have, they dealt with when it was really hard being a woman in geology. They were tough nuts. You did not mess around in those classes. And, you had these powerful women who really knew it was up, teaching your classes. And when I first got there, half of the geology students were women. By the time I left, all the geology students were women.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. You were telling me that last night. You saw at your school more women getting into geology, right? Which I think is very encouraging. And I think that's granted, I don't have the exact numbers, but my understanding is that's a national trend. Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know about the international trend aspect, because geology in the United States is taught a little bit differently than the focus is different than geology programs in Canada and Australia and like that. But I also think there's an aspect of there's no reason why it has to be a boys' game.
Right.
And in some ways, I'll get general here. Women tend to be better communicators. And so in something like mining, where it's really important to be able to translate your ideas from concept and these hard, most people don't understand when you're talking geology or you're talking grade, and finding a way to translate that and connect with people. I'm really looking forward to seeing where things go in the future, because I think you're going to start seeing more women in the mining sector, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I see the same thing in technology. I got into technology 25 years ago, which is my background. When I first got in, not very many women. Now there's an explosion of women in there. And a lot of what the focus is now in school and in the field is technology is very complex, much like geology. Who understands the circuits and the ones and the zeros? And most of the business people don't. You have to be able to translate. And so now there are programs in technology just for translating the technology into business conversation or a conversation that people can understand. Do you think that geology will eventually get that way where they have an emphasis on, okay, we understand the technicals, here's how you communicate that and build your business model or your business justification for that?
I think there's an aspect where, at least in the United States, geology in schools is typically on the academic side. And I'm really fortunate that I was able to get into the mining sector because of my family. And I think that it's going to take a reinvestment time-wise by mining companies in the U.S. to go back in and make those relationships again with the schools and with the programs, because I remember in mechanical engineering, Boeing would show up and talk to people about what it means to be a mechanical engineer professionally. You don't see, at least I didn't see that at Stanford, and my understanding is that's kind of the case at a lot of the other schools. Granted, I didn't have that experience, so maybe I'm being over general on that one, but making too much of a generalization. But I think that's going to be one of the big things, is people realizing you can have a job in mining, and also there's an image problem regarding working in mining in the U.S. Right? People
it's
look
demonized very often.
Yeah, and I think part of the aspect is how do I put this? People don't have the context, right? It's similar to you go to the supermarket, you get your beef and your steak in the package. You don't have that context of what it took to raise the cow, slaughter the cow, transport, all of that. And so you have this disconnect, but at least people know what a cow looks like. Most people haven't been to a mine, they haven't seen the aspects that go into getting there. And it makes it a little bit of a hurdle getting in.
Sure.
And so I think that's something that hopefully will change as people, especially in my generation, do a lot of self-research and self-education. So
we were talking about that last night. One of the aspects of our presentation was how millennials are smarter than some of the older generations in what they invest in and how they do their research. So I do think the younger generation is going to do that research. One of the other things we'd like to do is educate about geology and the mining companies for people that follow us, because a lot of people that follow us understand the metals, they understand where it came from. So talk about Reyna Silver and what is interesting about that geology to you?
I'm so lucky to work for Reyna, for starters, because we have really, really cool projects. One of our big projects is Giga, which is going into the historic 𝙎𝙊𝙇𝙀𝙍 district, which is important not only in terms of the mineralogy, but between the West Camp and the East Camp, produced 500 million ounces of silver over its history at a grade of, I'll translate it, the 10 ounces per ton.
Yeah.
High grade, awesome grade. And you go, okay, I have this part of the system. And as a nerd, and as, also the aspect of looking at it in that carbonate replacement model, where's the other half? Right? It was all in this half. Where's the other half? And sort of talking to your people that are interested in silver and their experiences with native silver. We have our 𝙊𝙊𝙇 project. It's a native silver mine. And historically, if you saw silver in Mexico, a huge portion of that came from 𝙊𝙊𝙇. And so going out of the historic district and following the trends, and we're in a new area and we're looking again, and we just finished or working on a 10,000 meter drilling project. We had to put out a press release 1,000 meters in because we hit native silver, and which is exciting because it's an extension of that vein. It's that
confirmation there's more there.
Yeah. And we also got gold too.
Nice.
So that's always a cool
it's nice when gold is your byproduct. That's wonderful.
Right? It's the icing on the cake.
So we've been talking about Reyna Silver. Tell us what's next for Reyna Silver the rest of the year. I know that you guys have that drilling program You guys have made so much progress on that.
Yeah.
Are you just expecting more news to come out from that?
So we just finished up the Giga drilling project. That was a 12,000 meter project, and the idea on that is to get an idea on not only the structure, but also try to find the intrusion. So we're looking for the intrusion, hot body, and the skarn top hat, essentially.
Okay.
That is the driving factor behind those historic, important chimney manto vein systems that put out that 500 million ounces, right? And so we're looking for the other half of the spectrum. And it's a little tricky because we've got a large claim package. We've got a huge claim package, actually. And you're looking for something that's about the size of a kilometer, which sounds big, but it's kind of like looking for your keys on the carpet when you drop it. And so we're hoping, we'll see what comes out with the press release, and excited about being able to share what's going on with the world with Giga. And we also have the rest of the 10,000 meter drilling program at 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙎, and see what continues to happen there, because historically the old school miners would do is they'd follow these little calcite veins, and they would open up and become this Brillo pad almost of silver and calcite, smash it up, heat it up, turn it into silver ingots, right? But they would follow these, and then suddenly they would open up into these giant ore chutes. They just follow them down. So that's, yes, the silver veins are awesome, especially when you have one that gets extended to kilometer scale. That's exciting. But what you're really looking for is defining the structure and figuring out how to identify where those ore chutes are. That's the geology habit of 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙎. And that's what you're hoping to be able to find, and doing that in a scientific manner. So I think we're going to run some geophys, because with that much silver, hopefully the conductivity is pretty good. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So talk about how Reyna Silver is more than just Reyna Silver now. You've got Reyna Gold, you've got Infinitum was a copper project.
Yeah.
So you guys have really kind of broken this out into the trifecta of metals projects, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the goal there, like what you were talking about last night with branding, right? It's important to sort of be able to hone your focus in and give the projects the limelight, right? Reyna's the queen, and you've got your crown, but you gotta change up your crown jewels based off of what you're working on, right? So at Reyna Silver, we've got 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙎, and we've got Giga, and those are sort of the big standouts for us, as well as Medicine Springs and Reyna itself. And then over at Infinitum, we have the 𝙂𝙊𝙇 project, which is early stages, really cool historic region again, where there's been important porphyry prior, and we've got some really interesting structures that are running through the system that we're hoping to do some drilling on. We did some soil samples and geophys. So
awesome.
It's cool to be able to be involved with multiple types of geology, especially as a young geologist. You want to kind of have that breadth to what you're seeing. And I really like working for Reyna.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren, so much for joining us at Gold Silver Pros. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you.
It was nice to meet you.
Hope to see more of you in the future as well. And I know that we'll be following Reyna Silver on the channel. And all of their accomplishments, we think they're going to be very many since we started covering them a couple of years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. We appreciate it. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification button so you get those notifications when new content comes out. If you like what we're doing here, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Those members of Patreon will get extra special content delivered to them as well.